One of the things that we said and why we decided to partner with Deepika was also that we believe in holistic health, and I think that's the way that we've always talked about with our consumers, because it's not just about your body, it's also about your mind, right? And if you look at somebody who's been very vocal over the last 3 4 years or few years about entire about mental health, also she's a great example of physical health in general, right? I think that's predominantly was the reason that we said okay that she's a right person to partner with and could represent the brand values or ethos, and consumers have a lot of things that we can learn in general from the lifestyle that she's adopted. I think the gear change from not investing in brand building to deciding to invest in brand building was also a call which as a company you need to take certain bets, right? Not all, say for example, or all your experiments will do wonders, right? But eventually as a startup, if you don't experiment, I don't think so you're doing the right thing, right? Because there have to be experiments. Some of them would be large scale experiments, some of them would be, say, experiments that on a smaller scale, but it's important to keep doing those investments. And for us, we were fortunate enough that that partnership has actually done really well for us as a brand, right? Because we've done the brand awareness studies, right, or the brand upliftment studies, which have worked really well in general. That we now placed right next to the brands that have been built over the last 100 years or 50 years, right? What are the consumers say, for example, we've done these studies where right next to Horlicks, Protein X, right, or your Himalaya, Oziva is coming as one of the trustworthy brands, which has happened over the last 4 5 years, right? And it's an important thing. And as we look at the next decade, right, we believe that there's a lot of things that we can do in India for the consumers while we are solving for health.
Dear listeners, before we dive further into the podcast, I would like to thank our partners, Prime Venture Partners. Prime is the first institutional check in category creating tech startups like MyGate, Neo, Dozy, Mfine. Prime is now investing out of its fourth fund, which is more than $100 million. dollars. Today, I have with me Sanjay Swami, managing partner, Prime Venture Partners. Sanjay, congratulations on the 10th anniversary of Prime, and do let us know how will the next 10 years of the Indian startup ecosystem be like.
Thanks, Siddharth, for having us on the show. The last 10 years has just been an amazing ride in India, and it has sort of started getting exponentially more exciting as days go by. And clearly your podcast is itself an example of that. But what we're seeing in India are the benefit of three big trends that have been foundationally laid over the last 10 years. The first one was Aadhaar, India Stack, and of course UPI, which has made movement of money, friction free and basically free and in real time. The second is smartphone and internet penetration along with 4G that is now pervasive across the country. And the third is the entrepreneurial spirit of India as well as the aspirational youth that we have in India that has created markets of extreme depth in India itself, right? This is something that was not there 10 years ago. Getting to $5 10 million of revenue was itself a big achievement, but now we're seeing that happening, in 12 to 18 months in some cases. Um, Having said that, I think we're only getting started. The best is yet to come. And what excites us as investors or as early stage entrepreneurs ourselves is really the massive opportunity, because what we're seeing in India is not something that's been seen in the rest of the world. The Western models, the Chinese models, the Israeli models are not what's going to solve India's problems. And the entrepreneurs in India have a unique opportunity to get down here, and just focus on solving India's problems first, which may very well be solutions for other parts of the world, right? And we're seeing some of that starting to happen. And that's where we think there is a spectacular opportunity here. So clearly for us, the best, and for this ecosystem, we are off to a great start, but the best is ahead of us.
So, listeners, let's dive straight into this week's podcast. Today, I have with me Aarti Gill, co founder of OZiva. OZiva is a plant based, completely clean wellness and nutrition brand. Aarti started her entrepreneurial journey in 2014 timeframe along with her co-founder Mihir. And at that point of time, they wanted to build something in healthcare. They started with services, and soon they realized that the end solution for services was products, nutritional products, and they couldn't find any products which could satisfy their high bar on what they wanted to deliver to the consumer. So that led them to start Oziva, a completely clean plant-based nutrition brand. And now Oziva has ventured into other aspects also. Welcome, Aarti, to the podcast.
Thanks, Siddharth. It's great to be here.
Aarti, would love to know from you, to set the context for our audience, what's Oziva? How big the brand is today in terms of revenue, in terms of number of consumers? How many SKUs are there of the brand? And which are some of the top products that are very well known in the market?
You summed it very nicely, Start. We started with nutrition as a brand, right? So Ziva is, one of the India's leading clean and plant-based nutrition brand. And as we move forward, we want to be the leading players in the consumer health segment. And the journey has been with a lot of failures as well as learnings over the last 5 6 years. The way we look at it is over the last few years we have served more than 2.5 million people, and we've impacted their lives in some way, and have helped them live a much better and a healthier kind of a lifestyle. We've grown, and today we are at a between 150 to 180 CR is what we clock on the revenues. We have grown at a 140% CAGR right over the last 3 years. And the when I talk about some of the why this growth has happened, or something that's very unique to us is if I talk about the word O in Oziva, it stands for originality, right? So it's something that reminds us day in day out that we need to keep innovating, right? And innovation has been at the one of the core principles or one of the core pillars of the brand, and that what reflects in some of our products as well, or the top products like protein and herbs women is one of our top products, which is a complete health drink which provides macronutrients, micronutrients. At the same time, it has a lot of herbal extracts which help in hormonal balance, right? One of the important things that we realized through our consultation journey back 2 years back, I mean, in the first 2 years of starting this company, was that a lot of women had PCOS, or have PCOS, right? And in 2013 we realized that there was no product or a solution for that, and that's why protein in house women came as a complete solution to solve for nutrient deficiency as well as hormonal balance. The other products that stand in our top are say for skin health, that we launch hair vitamins, or say biotin, that are plant derived, our collagen builders, right, which is predominantly again derived from a plant-based source, right? Today we have filed patents, and we have IP for some of these newer ingredients that we have derived, right? Whether it being a calcium from a plant source or iron from a plant source, right? And I think those would be our top 3 4 products, and we have invested a lot in the R&D over the last few years.
So Aarti, before we dive deep into the journey of yours and Oziva, could you share some high-level numbers with our audience on what's the revenue like? How many consumers have used Oziva till now, and how has the journey, like year-on-year growth rate been?
So, Siddharth, today, we are predominantly sitting at between 150 to 180 CR, right? Our growth for the last 3 years, we've grown at a 140% CAGR. And I think over the last 3 4 years, 2.5 million people or 25 lakh people have used our products, which in itself is, I think health is much difficult kind of for a new space to be operating in India, right? And for me, I think one thing that has led to this growth also is because, one of the core pillars that we say in the company is the product, right? Because if the product is great, right, I think all other things can be built around it, right? So that's been the journey so far.
And Aarti, you decided to build a omni-channel brand rather than a D2C brand throughout the lifetime of the company. So what has been the reason for that? Because omni-channel is much more harder. You need distribution armies of Unilever or Procter and Gamble to crack that?
Right. No, I think great question. Actually, I'll tell you how for us the digital first approach also happened because when we launched the brand, right, we actually went to offline initially and we were rejected by obviously almost 90% of the retailers out there कि आपका product अभी मतलब demand आएगी तो रखेंगे, which is a typical story, right? Even today, I think that's where when we got rejected by a lot of other channels, where we said like the digital is a channel that was doing well, that we understood also well. We said let's focus on that first, right? But I think as we grow the brand, right, important thing for anybody who's building a business is that you need to be present where the consumers are, because even today I look at my own D2C as a fulfillment channel, e-commerce as a fulfillment channel, and also chemist as a fulfillment channel. अगर इंसान को अपने साथ वाले केमिस्ट से चाहिए तो वहां से खरीद सकता है, अगर उनको से अमेजोन पे बाय करने फ्लिपकार्ट पे तो प्रोडक्ट शुड बी अवेलेबल देयर, राइट? आई थिंक द पर्पस ऑफ गोइंग ओमनी चैनल और ऑलवेज लुकिंग एट दैट वाज that that you should be basically solving for what consumers are asking for. I think that's been the goal from day one. Having said that, digital first approach is what we use, but over the last 1 year, I think the target has been to grow the offline retail outlets as well.
And if you could, let's go back and start with your roots. All right, you are a engineer by profession, and you did your bachelor's from IIT Roorkee. So, would love to know where did you grow up? What's your family background like? Then went to INSEAD for MBA. How did the decision shape up, and what made you come back to India?
I was, I'm actually a lot inspired by my mother. My mother is a healthcare professional. She used to work with Punjab government in the healthcare department, now retired. And, growing up, I saw her serving and, helping a lot of patients, going out of her way to help, a lot of patients. And I remember when she used to come back to home and discuss with my father, मतलब वो एक ही चीज बोलते थे, a lot of diseases that people face today could be avoided only if they had a better lifestyle, right? And that's one of the constant questions that stuck to me, forever, was that, can I build something? Can I actually, do something which can help people just live healthier, right? I think very simple. I was good in math, so I went to do my engineering at IIT Roorkee. मतलब ऐसे ही होता था, मतलब पहले, राइट, मैथ्स में अच्छे हो तो आप इंजीनियरिंग करने चले जाते थे. एंड I think thereafter I joined a startup, which was and was in I was in Bangalore for a couple of years, and then moved to INSEAD to do my masters, right? And I think after living outside India, I saw that the lifestyle of people and the kind of food options, the kind of things that they do for their health, it's very different, as compared to obviously back in India. And I realized it's a huge potential because somewhere down the line, I think India will, or the people in the country will take that journey, right? And if I can solve or build for that, I wanted to be here and I wanted to do that. And that was a decision that that made me come back to India. There were two segments that have always interested me, right? One was the preventive healthcare or wellness as a space, and the second is the impact social sector, right? And I've also briefly I worked with a private equity fund in the impact investment space. And the beauty of health is that while you're building and solving for health, at the same time you're creating something that has a lot of social impact, because today I believe one of the basic fundamental rights of a consumer, right, or a person is health, right? And I think that's what it brings together, the beauty of both the things that I'm interested in. Hence, I think came back to India. But as we'll speak, more about it, there was obviously there have been a lot of pivots in this journey, a lot of learnings, right? And where we are today is after a lot of failures as well as learnings.
So, would like to now dive deep into that, right? How did you meet your co-founder, and how did you guys decided to start your first venture, which was in services space?
So that, as I say, when an entrepreneur starts, there's I think most of us have a beautiful business plan on paper. So mera bhi ek aisa hi, there was this plan on paper, right? Everything was looking, all the numbers, because you change one formula, Excel ke numbers change ho jate hain, right? And that was something that I came back. And it was into services play where we were doing consultations, we were doing diet consultations. My co-founder Mihir, both of us met through a common friend, while kind of both of us were into running, and he is actually a far much better runner, and he's into marathon, running training. So one of the other services that we had on the platform was marathon training, right? So when we were building the services, kind of a platform where we were giving coaching around nutrition, marathon, or other fields within the wellness, uh, we realized, and our consumers came back to us and said that that while this is a lot of helpful information and guidance, but it's very difficult for me to actually do this, right? Because if a nutritionist has recommended a diet plan, right, the consumer came back and said कि मैं 9 बजे से लेके 7 बजे तक from 9 to 7 I am predominantly have a very hectic lifestyle. So it's very difficult for me to incorporate, right, a lot of suggestions that are given. And I think that was the time when we started thinking, can we actually build a recommendation engine? Coming from the tech background, it was always trying to think about, how can we solve via just technology. And that's where Mihir comes from, a biotechnology background, right? So he's somebody who understands, the science, food labels, food ingredients a lot much better at that time than me, right? And which is where when we picked up any product, he's like, no, this we can't recommend. And at the end of the entire exercise, we realized that, almost all products were rejected. And which what made us think that, if there's something that doesn't exist in India, which is absolutely clean, which doesn't have these ingredients that we don't believe in, like maltodextrins, acesulfame, sucralose, so can we actually create a brand or a product line that can give people the right nutrition without worrying about a lot of these ingredients that potentially have side effects. And that was the genesis or the thought behind Oziva. We worked for almost like 1.5 years on what the brand name would be, what the philosophy of the brand is, right, what the product formulations would be, right. And 2016 is when we launched, Oziva with 4 products. And we haven't looked back, since then, right? So we've just grown in the space of nutrition as well as wellness. And further talking more about that in how we actually evolved in that journey, we realized out of the 4 products, one of them actually really worked well, right? And it resonated with our consumers. And I think was predominantly the first TG that kind of liked the products was women between 25 to 35 age group, right? Because it was the first health drink which had the macronutrients, micronutrients, and a lot of herbal extracts which help you in balancing, say, hormones. And at that time we realized that PCOS is a growing concern in the country today, right? Because a lot of women who came on a platform and consulted with us said, like, 1 out of 4 said, like, I have PCOS. And we realized that there is no solution that is talking to them. And I think that's the first health drink that we created. Over a period of time, we launched, obviously, we just listened to our consumers. We said, what are they asking for? What are the problem or the need gaps that we need to solve for? And we kept on launching products for them. So we evolved from women's health to beauty and skin and hair nutrition, because we said that, even if you go to a doctor or a trichologist, you recommended a lot of these micronutrients, right? These are not medicines, these are supplementation, right? But people take it thinking they are medicines, right? That is where we said, can we actually create ingredients or nutrients that are derived from plant sources? And that was the skin and hair nutrition coming up. We've expanded our men's health portfolio. So I think that's been a journey over the last 4 years.
And how did you decide what were your first 4 products? And then my next question would be, which was the product that worked out really well among the 4? And why do you think is the reason for that?
We launched with 4 health drinks to kind of, initially, right? One was protein and herbs men, one was protein and herbs women, right? And today also, like, it's a top seller for us, right? It is in our top 10 product list, both these 2 products. Having said that, I think because it was built based on the consumer insight, right? As I said, that, it was the first health drink which had no ingredients or, artificial ingredients in general. And also, it was not just providing protein, which is a major macronutrient, it also had micronutrients. At the same time, as I said earlier, it had a lot of herbal extracts which help in balancing hormones, right? And I think that's where the first product that kind of worked very well, where our NPS of the product was very high, right, was the protein and herbs women. Also, globally, what we realized was that, clean eating as a concept, right, is a lot first adopted by women and in the global or in the Western market as well, which is where we saw the same kind of trend in India as well, right? More health conscious, looking at the food labels, right, or ingredients, and okay to pay a bit premium because the products were not the cheapest one. I think it was predominantly it's value for money is what we believe in, and I think that was the first product that came up. And I think gradually over the period of time, obviously, we learned from that consumer, and we had zero FMCG experience, right? We keep joking internally because the first product that we launched was we put everything that is good for a human body in one product, right? And the product pricing turned out to be, say, 1,000 rupees plus. So it is at 1,400 rupees. And that's where we realized that, for every price point, there is a certain kind of a TG or people that can afford that product, right? And thereafter the product lines that we built was each problem became a separate solution, right, rather than trying to merge these three four kind of problems together because the price points became too more expensive, right? So hence our next price points came at around 800 to 900. The next price points came up at 500 to 600. So the one of the important learnings or our focus has been how do we make, if we want 100 million people to be adopting and using our products, right, how do we actually keep innovating and bring the price points to a level that consumers can put it as a part of their monthly basket. I think that's been the thought process.
And the first 2 years of services business, does this still continue to be a part of Oziva?
So yes, so what we've done interesting is because we built this platform, we had, we knew that there's a value in the service, right? Also, if I look at health or wellness as a space, right? People don't buy dabbas, right? People want somebody that they can trust, that person or a brand can help them solve for their health, right? So the entire service we move to the back end, and it's called today Oziva Prime, where a Prime customer can get unlimited access to your nutritionist. The nutritionist help them with lifestyle coaching as well as guidance around what are the other changes that they need to make in their life, because I don't think so it's about apni ye kha liya and everything gets solved, right? These are not magic pills, right, actually, or magic solutions, right, ideally. And it's not a medicine, as I say, right? So there are a lot of other changes that a consumer needs to make in their life, and which is where the coaches help them make that transition, right, or help them. And I think that's the service today which we've focused on. How do we and it has helped us to improve our retention rates, right, our LTVs, and we move that service to the back end. Yeah.
And if you could share, during the first 2 years, what are the challenges faced? Did you approach VCs during that point of time, when you were only building services, and how did that journey pan out?
So I think we raised almost like 15 lakh, 20 lakh angel investment, right? When we began the initial journey of Fit Circle, right? Within 6 months, we realized कि पैसा तो खत्म हो रहा है, right? It's it's difficult, and also the business model was raising questions for us कि इसको grow भी कर सकते हैं या नहीं. And both me and I believe कि capital तब उठाना चाहिए जब आपका business problem solved हो, आपके पास product market fit हो, because that's when you will be able to do justice to that capital, right? Otherwise, it's just gonna go, it would be wasted, right? And it also capital always also comes with a lot of expectations around growth. So I don't think so our product market fit was there, and which is where we decided that there's no point of raising capital now. And then we kind of we pooled in our own internal family, and we put in more money into the business. We went into, and we've done a lot of different kind of odd kind of works to ensure that we sustain those 2 years, right, initially. And thereafter, after 2 years, we decided to go for debt. So once Oziva was launching, we raised again 20 lakh from, say, 10 lakh from SBI, 10 lakh from HDFC. We keep joking internally, अगर उस टाइम पे equity raise किया होता तो उनका तो आज ROI सबसे ज़्यादा होता, right? But ideally we kind of went ahead with debt. uh, and I think that's where we kind of we were, for the first 2 years after Oziva, we were consumer funded, right? So consumers believed in our products, they were buying our products. So we were growing by the reinvest internal accruals, right, reinvested into the business. I think that was a growth. And I think thereafter, when Matrix came in 2020, like 2 years back, it was the first institutional round. Thereafter, I think 2021, last year, Eight Roads came in and we partnered with them. So it's been a journey from debt first to then equity.
And when Matrix came in, at that point of time, the revenue was 20 crores, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
how did you build that revenue from 2016 to 2020? First starting with four products, and then if you could share how many SKUs you launched during that course of time.
I think for us, even today, 70% of our revenues come from, say, top 10, 12 products, right? Because it's all each product, sub product for me is almost like each product is like a sub brand, right? To me, how, say, for example, how Live 52 is for Himalaya, right? For me, Her Balance PCOS is a similar kind of a product for for PCOS, which is a 550 crore market, right? Ideally, I think the first 3 4 years we were understanding digital also, right? Because it was a new insight. We also had rejections, as I was saying, by the retail outlets. We went to the retail centers, they said nahi rakh sakte, right? So pehle ek do saal to wahi, that was a learning that was happening. And we were working, so the first office was from my home, right? There was this, if you've ever lived in Mumbai has small houses, and imagine within that small, matlab, my the chota sa hall was converted into our office space, right? So we were operating with 5 6 people working from my home, right, in the initial 2 3 years. Through the limited capital that we had, right, we were growing based on that, by and we were profitable in the first, obviously, few years of our initial journey. So that's been the so far like journey of the first 2 years, reinvesting, listening to the consumers, right? What is the same consumer asking for, right? The similar consumer asked for that, because the concept, as first few years we focused on women as a TG, right? And it was the concept of I want to feel good, I want to look good, right? And the whole concept of hair and skin nutrition came from there. So we launched that portfolio, and then we decided, can we actually expedite this journey? Because we believe now that there is a strong product market fit, right, that exists. Our ethos are very strong. We've not compromised on them, right? And I think that's the time we decided to scale up.
And if you could share, how did you build your distribution channels? What were the investments required in both online and offline distribution channels during the initial 4 to 5 building years?
We've been very strong digital first, right, for the first 5 years of our journey as well. And where the distribution was happening mainly through our own platform, which was contributing around 40 to 45 or 50% of our sales, right? And the rest was coming from e-commerce platforms. But one of the things that we used to see was that even if people are buying on the e-commerce platforms, they were searching for, say, 90% of them were searching for OZiva branded keyword, right? So people are looking for OZiva Her Balance, OZiva protein, right? I think those were the kind of, we were leveraging all these distribution platforms as a fulfillment partner in general, right? And next, I think the next growth where we are growing our offline retail, it's a very traditional model of super stockists, distributors, retailers, right? And investing in a lot of trade marketing and BTL.
Got it. And if you could share some nuances of building the both channels, like were you heavily reliant on Facebook ads, Google ads during the initial years to get traffic on your website, or how did you go about that? And similarly for the offline part.
See, I think Siddharth, my learning has been, right. The marketing strategy should keep evolving, right? And I think every 2 years there's, or I think today things are moving very fast, so there needs to be an evolution every 2 years. So there was a time when Facebook and Google were extremely cheap when you go to marketing, all right? So I think a lot of brands would have at that time would have leveraged that as a source, right? There are also a lot of investment into content marketing that done, right? Collaboration with different people or different stakeholders, right? This is something I would say 2 years back. If you ask me, would the same thing work today for a brand which is, say, 20 crores, and if they use the same strategy? I would say might not, right? Because there is an evolution that has happened. The pricings have become much expensive, certain channels. So as a marketer, the important thing is to understand what is the new thing that you can jump on first and figure out that new source before the other people replicate the same strategy, because then the ROI of that strategy will decrease. right? Another thing, I think there was a gradual shift for us between people who come from D2C background will understand this is performance marketing and brand marketing spends, right? Because I think in the initial days it's a lot skewed towards performance marketing, right? And as a company or at the stage evolves, a lot of shifts go toward building that brand, and the power of the brand and investing in that is much more higher as compared to doing performance marketing. And hence there's a gradual shift. Having said that, from day zero, should you do, say, brand marketing, right? I think I still have questions on that, right? So it has to be a journey.
And you were able to scale very rapidly from 20 crores after raising the first round of Matrix, right? To when you raised the 12 million round from 8 roads. At that point of time, you were at 100 crores of revenue. What brought that rapid scale of 5x within a year's span of time?
I think two things which were there, because imagine it was also a first institutional raise where we did have the luxury to invest into the business, which we didn't have obviously the first 3-4 years, right? And the things that were working well for us, we just kind of ensured that we invested far more higher on those high ROI kind of channels or strategies, right? I think that's one of the things. Another thing, if you remember, that has happened was the last 2 years have been very different, right? There has been an accelerated adoption of digital in the last 2 years. There has also been an inclination towards health that has increased, right, because of COVID. I think during the first impact, we've seen the baseline going up in general. And that baseline, while it has reduced, right, to a certain extent. So I have known brands which grew 5x, but stay even at the baseline going down, they would still be a 2x of their initial numbers. And hence, I think that's also an important macroeconomic change that has happened of how consumers are thinking, or are they willing to invest in their health. So that's also one of the reasons.
And how do you ensure repeat purchases by consumer?
I don't think so. A lot of companies have spoken to different brands at scaled up level, right? Or even MNCs that exist within the adult nutrition space, right? Adult nutrition for me is one of the toughest categories in the country. I think kids nutrition, we are there, there are a lot of brands, scaled up brands, right? But there's another thing, जब हम 30 से 50 के बीच में होते हैं ना, that's the least time when people are thinking about their health, right? They will start thinking about a lot of other things, which now is changing for good, right? But also 55 plus, then when you start getting those diseases or the doctor recommends you come back and then take your products very religiously, right? Kind of a story. And I think the age group between, I would say, 25 to 45 or 50, right? Which is where the retentions are not that great, right? Where, say, even scaled up brands have seen maximum 2 boxes in a year being picked up. The way we cater to it is we said that, we have a lot of categories that we operate in, right? One of the reasons for that also is because people buy these products as a problem solution sometimes, right? And at a given time, say for example, for 1 or 2 months they might be thinking about hair, or as a challenge. Then after 3 months they might thinking about their gut health, or your bone health, right? So as a brand, if they've bought into the brand, right, no matter, once they've started trusting the brand, if the problem one is solved, and if they're now thinking of the problem two, they should come back to me, is the way we look and solve for it, which is predominantly, as you, one word for this is cross selling, right? That is there. Another way that we have solved for it is Oziva Prime, which we spoke about, right? Because this is the place where we've realized people need a lot of nudges, right? Inspiration, stories, right? To be on that journey. And I think that's where we've been investing in, and we will continue investing in that.
And today, Aarti, what's the focus of Oziva? Let's say from, let's say, 180 crores to 500 crores. What is required to take you there?
Focus is predominantly from a leading nutrition brand in the country to become a leading consumer health brand in the country. I think that's how we look at it, right? For me, my competition is pharma players, right? I think a lot of this market today is by, pharma players. We don't have $1 billion Centrum in the country today. While there are a lot of scaled up brands globally that exist, it's a non-branded play. For example, you would go to pharmacy, you would say, मेरे को vitamin D दे दो, राइट। अब आप विटामिन डी के ऊपर आप देखते नहीं हो वेज नॉन वेज का सिंबल, राइट, भूल जाते हैं लोग। वो डी कहाँ से आया उसका सोर्सिंग की बात नहीं कर रहे, बायो अवेलेबिलिटी की बात नहीं कर रहे, राइट। एंड आई थिंक दोज आर द थिंग्स दैट वी आर इन्वेस्टिंग इन एज अ कंपनी, राइट, that how do we create new innovative products, because I think in the last 10 years there has been zero innovation in the OTC space, right? Either people have started focusing on, advanced like diseases like say either cancer and preparing drugs for that, right, which is one strategy, or in the OTC is just change the package label को change कर दो, एक दो micronutrients को mix कर दो, एक नया product बन जाता है, right, because your channel is fixed, margin देना है, and then the products start flowing in that margin, right? I think that's where we believe that first thing that we have to do is come up with new products. So, for example, we filed now patent for how do you derive calcium from a plant source? How do you derive, say, iron from a plant source? We are talking about bioavailability, absorption of these ingredients. Because the simple thing is 4,000 mcg की जगह 8,000 दे दो. Like it's not about the quantity that you consume. It's about कि आपका body में जाके absorb हो रहा है या नहीं हो रहा, right? And I think that's where we are doing more consumer trials, real world evidence studies, right? And first thing is to solve keeps doing the innovation, right? The second, how do we grow to that number? I think it would be predominantly a play of growing the channels also that we have, right? I think we'll keep scaling the digital, but at the same time there are different things that we are doing. We saw that 20% of our people drop out because they go to a HCP and they say कि मैं ये ले सकता हूँ regularly या नहीं, right? And the HCP says मुझे नहीं पता, I've never, or I'm not sure. So we've realized while we've done a lot of consumer awareness, but we've not talked about our science with the HCPs, and that's one of the things that we are continuing to invest in, so that we don't need a prescription, but say if somebody does a second check, they should not say that I'm not aware, right? I think that's how we're looking at it, right? While the demand should be still generated digitally. I think that is second channel, and the third obviously is ensured, your offline stores and our reach expands in general. Those are the ways we look at it.
And for our listeners, HCP are healthcare providers like doctors, nutritionists.
Healthcare professionals. Yes, yes, yes.
And a very interesting part is when you were growing from 0 to 20 crores, did you get any funding options from the market, or is it because was it a choice, or was it an accident that you took that journey bootstrapped?
So, Siddharth, good question. In hindsight, मतलब we do very less marketing. हम बड़े अपने एक छोटे से एरिया से काम अच्छा कर रहे थे, इनोवेशन कर रहे थे. But I realized very few people knew about us, right? As a company that is doing this work. And I remember the first time, the three, four first, we raised some money. Titan came in, right? Titan was the first fun to actually identify us, which is by Kunal and Rohit. When they first discovered us, right? They said you're building a rock solid kind of a thing, right? You've been profitable. You have these new kind of products that you've been building, right? And I think from there on, the VC community is very small, right? So I think that's when they discovered that oh, there is something called Oziva who are doing some good work, right, in Mumbai, and predominant, and I think that's how the journey started of the discovery. So
And when was this Titan round? When did this Titan round happen?
we raised almost 3 months before Matrix came in,
Okay.
राइट। सो मुझे लगता है इंडिया में ना बहुत ऐसे अच्छे बिजनेसेस हैं जो अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं, उनका डिस्कवरी कई बार नहीं होता है बिकॉज दे डोंट पुट द एफर्ट्स टू रीच आउट themselves. That's also a mistake I think people should do. Do not take that as a learning from us. But we were so focused on building the right product, right, and innovating on some these new things that we we said let's keep building like this, and we decided that we will, we missed that thing of reaching out outreach to VCs.
Got it. And during your each round, if you can share the mental model of how you valued your company, let's say during the Titan round, during Matrix, and during the A2, like was it always like a 4x, 5x of revenue as traditional like omni-channel or D2C brands are given, or how did you think about that?
I think that is pretty much set by the, it's general in the industry. It could be anywhere between, say, 4 to 7 or a 8x also, which is there based on how good the unit economics of the business are, right? What is the potential of growth, right? So I think it's more of an art, and as well as relationship versus like thinking about, this is the number. Also at the same time, sometimes I think it's also about how much do you want to partner with the other person, and the person wants to partner with you, because it's just not the number of 4 ka multiple, साढ़े चार का multiple, 5 ka multiple. I think in a, because these are intermediate valuations, right? These are paper valuations. How much do they matter? I think your ultimate story comes in when you actually get listed, right? In general, I think that's the way to identify. Or, say, for example, if there is a strategic kind of a route that anybody decides to take, right? I think the focus should be on finding out the right partner. Along with, there are good thing is there are multiples set up, right, for each industry.
And one interesting thing is that you brought Deepika Padukone as a brand ambassador 1 year ago. What was the framework, mental model of building? Like it requires a huge amount of investment. Until now, the company was built very frugally. So how did
Yes.
you change those kind of a gears, right, to investing a huge
Yes.
sum into branding? And how have you executed it till now?
One of the things that we said, and why we decided to partner with Deepika, was also that we believe in holistic health, and I think that's the way that we've always talked about with our consumers, because it's not just about your body, it's also about your mind, right? And if we look at somebody who's been very vocal over the last 3 4 years or few years about entire about mental health, also she's a great example of physical health in general, right? I think that's predominantly was the reason that we said, okay, that she's a right person to partner with and could represent the brand values or ethos, and consumers have a lot of things that we can learn in general from the lifestyle that she's adopted. I think the gear change from not investing in brand building to deciding to invest in brand building was also a call, which as a company you need to take certain bets, right? Not all, say for example, or all your experiments will do wonders, right? But eventually, as a startup, if you don't experiment, I don't think so you're doing the right thing, right? Because there have to be experiments. Some of them would be large scale experiments, some of them would be, say, experiments that on a smaller scale. But it's important to keep doing those investments, and for us, we were fortunate enough that that partnership has actually done really well for us as a brand, right? Because we've done the brand awareness studies, right, or the brand upliftment studies, which have worked really well in general. That we now placed right next to the brands that have been built over the last 100 years or 50 years, right? What are the consumers, say for example, we've done these studies where right next to Horlicks, Protein X, right, or your Himalaya, Oziva is coming as one of the trustworthy brands, which has happened over the last 4 5 years, right? And it's an important thing. And as we look at the next decade, right, we believe that there's a lot of things that we can do in India for the consumers while we are solving for health.
And one of the things is how do you go about executing those campaigns, because they are, a lot of things can go wrong and they involve a lot of capital. So, what are the frameworks that you adopted that you want to do certain kind of things and ignore those things, and what are those things?
So I think in terms of those campaigns, it was to first identify where the consumer is. We've always taken within those campaigns also a very digital first approach of kind of reaching out to the consumers, right? I think there are. For me, there are different mediums to reach out to the consumers, right? You have TV in one place, you have, say, digital like YouTube or, say, Facebook, right? Which are the other mediums, Instagram, to reach out to the consumers, right? We said, like, in our first kind of, campaigns, right? We started digital first, right? We realized that that communication is working well, and that's where we actually went ahead and did some TV campaigns as well, right? I think the digital gives you a good way to experiment on your creative comms, and then if you think that it's working well, then you can actually take it to a much larger kind of a reach, right? And I think the TV on a large scale turns out to be much cheaper way to actually reach out to the consumers, right? But within that also, can you do much more targeting targeted approach, right? Which is much possible because, say, for example, the Hindi belt today can be excluded, like, in general TV, while there can be excluded from the other regions, right? So you can do a campaign specifically in Tamil Nadu, or say you can do in Andhra Pradesh as a market, or West Bengal. I think those are the kind of gradual moving up the strategies, right? But the first kind of lever for us was digital first campaigns.
And till now, we talked about things that worked out. What are some of the things that didn't work out during the Oziva journey from 2016 till now? And what are your learnings from them?
There are a lot of things that have not worked out. I think if I have to go back to thinking about, even the first business that we were in, right, which was the services play, it was so important to understand that, that call to pivot, right, is also an important call, when to take it, right? Because, for us, at least that was a pivotal point in our, when we decided that services to products need to happen in the country, right? Another important decision that we had to take was, going from, say, just being nutrition, right, to evolving to a broader play within a consumer health. Things look simple when, again, when you look in hindsight, ki हाँ, ये gradual path ही था. But I think when you have a strong equity in nutrition, right, there are obviously questions asked that why are you going beyond nutrition? Is this the right time to go? And we decided as a company that we would take that path, right? And I think we still have to prove that model. I don't think so, that yet we have proven that, the decision that we have taken, right? But I think the next 5 years, I'm extremely sure that, that the way we expect is today 90% of the revenues come from nutrition and 10 from the other categories that we're operating in. At a large scale of, say, 500 crore, I believe that would be, say, 60% from nutrition and 40% from the other categories that we're operating in. I think that's how I look at it.
And while you are mentioning that you could have continued in nutrition and built more categories, right, with the same kind of investments that you are now doing in categories apart from nutrition. How was that call taken?
But I think, Siddharth, it was an easier call because, according to me, it was predominantly I'm solving for skin health, I'm solving for hair health, right? So, if I'm solving for skin health, it could be by what you eat or what you apply, right? If you're solving for hair health, because a consumer has walked into your store or a brand looking for that holistic solution, right? I think then, either whether it's a consumption or application based product, you need to have both the offerings, right? So that it can become easier for them to build routines, right, in their lifestyle, right? Why should they go to two different brands when they believe in the brand ethos, right? That, hey, that, this company derives a lot of, it's clean label, right? It's clean nutrition, clean beauty, we say, right? It's nutrients. So even in, say, for example, our application of beauty products, right, it's a lot of phytonutrients that we are using for nourishment from outside, and merging that natural and botanical science with, say, a lot of efficacy, that, or the clinical trials or the scientific studies. For me, that's the best combination of the consumer can get the same thing from the same brand, right? And for us, the we always look at just the consumer, right? And what are they looking out from us? And that was a decision where we said, okay, should we go into, deeper into, say, functional foods is one category that we have not gone into, right? Because I believe, we would not be able to add a lot of value in that category, right? There's little scope of, science or innovation, clinical studies, right, in that space. We love science, we love the R&D that we do, right? There's a lot more play that we can, or value add that we can do in this space.
Got it. Thank you so much, Aarti. It's been wonderful walking in your shoes, knowing your journey. There have been tremendous learnings listening to you. I'm glad we could bring you on the podcast and share more about Oziva, how you build the brand with first principles. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Lovely, Siddharth. Thank you so much. It was great to talk to you.